Hi, welcome to another conversation of the Thinnk Set. My name is Kylo Sabone, and today's conversation, we are leaving the country a little bit and we're going off to the US in Botswana. And I say that because I'm speaking to a couple, wonderful couple that moved from the US to East Africa, Southern Africa, and then are finding a home in Botswana, and they're coming in with something that brings what we lack as Botswana in general. We lack that kind of thinking where we want to get things together, connected, co-working, co-creating, co-spacing things. We believe so much in working individually and trying to push our own things, which is okay. But sometimes if there's an opportunity to co-work, why not? It makes your life easier, saves you a 10 tab there and there. However, let me not take it from them and just directly introduce them. The gentleman there, I'm going to skip you. Yeah, I have to skip you. Let me let me go. Let me go to Thea. Hey, it's a difficult one.
It is.
Yeah, so I'll end at Thea. You'll tell me the next. Theodosia.
Theodosia.
Oh, Theodosia.
Yeah, but I like Thea.
What does it
Thea is
mean though?
sweet.
What is the dosia?
Yeah.
Or is it one name put together?
It's one name put together.
All right.
Well, no, Theo means God.
Yes.
Dosia means gift. So my parents named me Theodosia to mean God's gift.
Oh, umpo.
Mpo.
Yeah, umpo in Setswana. Okay. The lady, for the sake of this conversation, I'll refer to her as God's gift. Umpo ya Mudimu.
Ah, this is so sweet.
So, umpo ya Mudimu. And then obviously I'm also with Brian Cook. Brian, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, man.
Yeah, Brian Cook is a very common name.
Hey,
So if,
you
if
know
I'm to Google you, I'm going to find like a whole lot of Americans called Brian Cook.
Yeah, everybody goes, Theodosia, and then, hi, I'm Brian.
Okay, sure.
Easy enough.
All right, Brian, guys, thank you very much for coming through. We've been trying to do this for a while, and I went down on flu. Things kept going up and down. However, let me just also re-welcome you to Botswana. I mean, I went to see the facility that you guys have put up. It's a fantastic space, and I think I liked it the most. And I had a bit of a chat outside of you with Brian, and he told me that you guys have done Kenya and so on. Maybe you do tell me your story.
Yeah. So where to begin? Yeah, we're from the U.S., and I would say we, back in 2001, decided to make the move out to, or 2002, what was it?
We were starting to think about it, but we did our anniversary trip, our 7th anniversary trip to Kenya. We traveled to different continents, and we were like, shame, we're black, we need to go to Africa.
And you know what happened to us? We were literally on this anniversary trip, and the thought that kept coming through to us was, we have been lied to about Africa.
How?
We've been lied to. I'm embarrassed to kind of even say. But you know the commercials and hear the kids and the swollen belly and the flies and just poverty, let's raise money. And it's shameful to be a black person in the 2020s thinking like, what did I think? So you show up to Nairobi and the expressway from the airport and the skyscrapers and the global cuisine and the this, that you could find literally anything, the neighborhoods, we were just blown away. We were completely blown away.
Wait, you want to tell me the Africa you knew growing up and the Africa you see?
So I'm originally from Guyana, South America.
All right.
So I grew up in a developing country.
Yeah.
And my parents brought us over. My dad brought my mom and I over to the U.S. But we would go home every 2 years. So I was already used to like this is what we do in the developing world, and I grew up in an African church, in a Nigerian and Ghanaian church. My dad was a pastor. And so I already had that sense. And, I grew up watching Naija movies. It wasn't as surprising to me, I would say, just because.
Yeah, but you lived in an African out of Africa, so
Yeah.
you are fine. But I understand the shock.
And then for me also, I would say like it was intellectual. Like, my father's been an attorney in venture capital and civil rights law, has been a professor for 30, 40 years in Washington, D.C. He's an endowed professor at Georgetown University. And so my engagement also with like Pan-Africanism was intellectual. Okay. It's like I had read the greats and Thomas Sankara and Nkrumah.
Yeah.
Right. So I had this appreciation for the idea that, because we're descendants of enslaved Africans some 400 plus years ago and have built these thriving, beautiful black cultures in America and all through the Americas, the Caribbean and South America, I was like, there are more of us out there. right? And so it's
Yeah.
like I had this deep appreciation for the idea of the diaspora and global blackness. But then the skyscrapers hit a brother, and I was just like,
They
hold up,
did.
and the cost of living, right, relative to the U.S. And I think there's a global movement right now where I think in particular, like West Africa, you're seeing a lot of efforts to kind of, do some genealogy tests and people to reclaim their citizenship and these kind of homecoming like trips and opportunities and stuff like that. So there are black people all over the place who are kind of waking up, whether they're a little bit more ignorant, where I started out like, I'm sorry, these bustling economies and venture capital and private equity. And, I've got a business background and that sort of thing. So blew my mind on all of that versus folks who had engaged across the diaspora already, right? Understood and appreciated the culture, had seen movies and X, Y, and Z, and so didn't have exactly the same shock I did.
Except I slightly did because, growing up in the U.S. but never being on the continent is very different. And I think even my diasporic friends would say the same. Whenever we return home and we've seen the growth, we get proud. It humbles us. It makes us cry. It makes us, our parents left for opportunity.
Yeah.
And then when you come back and you see, look at the opportunity in your own country. You look at your parents and like, if you just stayed a little longer, you know? And then you want to be a part of that. You want to be a part of that growth, that brilliance, and you appreciate that what you're being told in the West sometimes is not the full story. It's not the true story.
Yeah.
And it's not the story out of those who live it. And so to come back and be in a place with those who live it and see what they've done, it is humbling. It is beautiful,
But isn't it also quite a benefit for you as well? That remember, Africa has been like this, all right? The Africa that you are reading about, parts of it have been like that. You know what I mean? So you've been given, I believe you've been given the right education at the beginning, but no one ever upgraded it. So, you tell the story of something, you don't expect it to change, or you think it won't change. So I think you were sold the right story, but you never sold the transformation that Africans went through. Because if you think of the Thomas Sankaras, they were there during those times when it was that hectic. You think of the Nelson Mandelas, they were there and they've been through, all this problem. We've been through this, but we have transformed. So what I want to take now from you is that seeing that from what you are taught in class or socially educated in the US and coming in here, how was your mind working it out?
First of all, to say I've also benefited is an understatement. Right?
Okay.
I think that we're coming with such awe and such humility about the transformation that's occurred. The assets and a lot of like the business that we're trying to do is about kind of celebrating the ingenuity of people, kind of recognizing everything that we need is right here. The brilliance within our people, the raw materials, of course, the global discourse about sending out raw materials versus finished products.
Yeah.
So much of like what we're getting to see and what we're trying to uplift and celebrate is like the brilliance and the genius that is here. To your point about like, the education getting upgraded, part of what I'm trying to say is that I think we were given some stereotypes, if you
All right.
will. And,
Okay.
you can live in like an echo chamber. And I think with social media, it's a relevant conversation for anyone, right? You hear what your algorithm is going to give you, so to speak, and that exists like along national lines as well. So, for us, it's like you're getting these messages about Africa being stagnant or being in this place of dependency, if you will, only to come and recognize exactly to your point, there have been transformations. There have been, decolonization movements, liberalization efforts. And I think there are, 54 different countries in Africa, so many different stories. That's the other thing. We can brush Africa like it is a single country, when in reality, there are these rich cultures and histories of governance and what it's looked like to emerge and become freer and bigger markets, and what that looks like. And so, if anything, we're showing up with like this, our eyes wide open, if you will, a deep appreciation and just celebration of how much is here. Yeah.
I would say in January 2024 is
All right.
when we arrived on the continent in Kenya. And when we landed, for me as a mother, I was just like,
Okay, it's not as bad.
No, it was more like a relief.
Okay,
Relief that my children were going to be a part of the majority.
all right.
You know, in the United States, African Americans, black people are 13% of the population. And when you think about 13% of the population, right, and then you come here and you see melanated people
Yeah.
being the majority, it's like my children, just because we have, or we went to these elite institutions and we've gotten this success, we're not in a neighborhood where it's just them, or they're not going to school where, you know, people are wondering about their hair or what they're eating or anything like that. You know, it's like they're in community. My children don't have to be raised like how I was, to kind of always consider, do I belong?
Yeah, I get this thing in my head that the way you say what the hair and what they eat, when you're in the US, where majority of the entertainment that we see has got a whole lot of black people.
Because we the
So
culture.
how don't you guys? How doesn't the other population know about Africans when they literally anything American? The American dream actually shows more black people than white people.
Every time we talk to people, they're shocked to hear that we're 13% of the population. And
But you guys are everywhere. Like
Yeah.
black people in the US, when you think of an American dream, you are thinking, I'm a black guy on the Timberland driving a Cadillac. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Yeah.
But how did you agree though to him saying, let's move to Africa? I'm taking from the wife's perspective. I mean, it's as men, sure, I'm ready to move anytime.
Yeah.
But I gotta convince the other half. How did he convince you to say, let's go to Africa, first of all, where everything looks bad according to what you've seen?
Quote unquote. We're equally yoked.
Okay.
And so we always knew that we were going to travel with our children. Before our children were born, we were sitting in our first home and we were like, okay, before we have a child, what do we want this child to understand about life? And what was really important to us is we need to demystify the myths
Okay.
of who we are as black people.
Yeah.
And, you know, being from the Caribbean, I know what it means to see a black person in power. I know what it means to run your country and to have a say and not necessarily feel like because of your color, you're disenfranchised. That doesn't mean we don't have colorism and nuances that exist in the Caribbean, but it does mean like we've seen ourselves. We grow up with like that strength of I can and I will. And so we wanted our children to do the same. And we planned, we have like this book where we planned literally every chapter for every age that they would be, what we wanted them to grow to learn, grow to understand, and believe about themselves and what they come from. And so when we decided, all right, let's do this, and we decided within 2 months. It was November of 2023. We were at my parents' house. We were eating. It was Thanksgiving, and I say that in quotes because that is a harmful term to our indigenous people in North America. But we were there celebrating the holiday with our family, and you know, they're like, y'all always talking about moving and moving here and moving there, because Brian and I moved a lot in the U.S. for work, et cetera. And my parents were like, if y'all are gonna move to Kenya, just do it. And we were like, bet. So literally the next day we booked the flight. By the end of the week, we told them, and they're like, yeah, what? And we're like, yeah, we're going to leave in the first week of January after New Year's. Bye.
Let me pick up on this theme a little
All right.
bit,
Yeah.
So a lot of people, you know, we've been married for 11 years. We
11
just
years.
celebrated 11 years. We've known each other for 15
Okay.
years. And, you know, black don't crack. So, you know, they'll say like 11 years. Like, what are you know, when y'all get married?
Yeah.
So if you're looking for like did someone have to convince the other, we're two people who I think have been, you know, chasing opportunity, but also chasing impact. And so when she says like we had moved to these different places for work, we grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. But at one point it's like we find
DMV?
ourselves, right, the DMV, used to call it Chocolate City in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Beautiful place. We're talking about living in the mountains of Colorado at one point where our son was born. At one point, we were living in the White Mountains of Vermont. right? 2 hours south of Canada, 2 hours north of Boston. Just felt like in the middle of nowhere. I got an MBA at the Tuck School of Business at Dartmouth. It's an Ivy League school. Great program,
stuff.
but in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about being the only. I think the entire black population of graduate students when I was there was 3%. Right?
Right.
Of an entire university, right? Medical school and business school and all the. So you can imagine, right? We have been willing to go to places that most people are like, why would you go there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember going to MBA like at mid events and people were like, I can go to Boston or New York or like, let's go over to this
Chicago.
part, let's go to Chicago, let's be around our people. And here we are in the mountains of Vermont because we're like, hey, there's opportunity for impact. And, she was working out of the president's office like for the whole university that set up her career in so many wonderful ways. And there we were in the mountains of Vermont. And, I'm driving 2 hours to go to a brand management job in Maine. And she's driving 2 hours to get to her job at this university. So we had already built in our relationship this desire and ability to just kind of say, if there's opportunity there and there's impact and we feel like it's aligned with our calling, let's go do it. So it's never really been like come on, baby, we got to go to Africa. We like to vacation.
The fluid was already there. You guys are already flowing with this
We're
thing.
flowing.
So you then went into Kenya, right?
Yeah.
See, a lot of the people on the African continent have this thing that it's only in Botswana and South Africa where your blackness has got to be verified, right? Yeah, you know what I mean. Right? But some people say in the rest of the African continent, as long as you are black, no one really worries whether you have an ID or not. You are black, so you are home. All right? I want to know how you gelled into Kenya. Is it the same?
Karibu sana.
She looks coastal, so I'd place her in
I am
Mombasa.
coastal.
Yeah, I'll place her in Mombasa. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No, you're right. Kenya, because there are millions of people, and it's just a cultural epicenter for East Africa.
Okay.
I think we showed up and people saw the fits. They could tell you're from somewhere
they could
else.
tell.
And it goes back to what you were talking about. We're always seeing images of the Black American dream in movies and popular culture, athletes and celebrities from Beyonce to LeBron James and X, Y, Z. So it's almost like people thought we were cool. I don't know how else to put it. And so it felt very easy to kind of fit in. And people were excited. There was also a very large, the UN is there. So it's a very large kind of global community of professionals and expats. So it wasn't weird to kind of see so many different expressions of blackness. All of a sudden a black person is speaking Italian and you're just like, what's happening?
Yeah.
But you don't, balk at it at all,
Yeah.
All right. So you went into Kenya, you settled in. What are you doing in Kenya? And why move out of such a huge population to...
What should I say? Where do I start? First of all, Kenya was healing. I think we needed a moment to heal from the work we were doing and from where our nation was at the time as Black people. Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
As people from the global diaspora, the realities of what's happening throughout the world is not missed on us. And so we just needed a moment to breathe with our children and to heal from being in the spaces. And Kenya was a great space to heal. Right. And so we went there intentionally to be like, all right, we want to go through the investor visa. We know we're here for a purpose, and we're going to explore that. And as we explore that, we're also going to take the time to make sure our children are in a space where it was the first time in school for them. We had homeschooled them in the U.S. during COVID. And so when they came, we wanted to make sure that they got into a great school. We had found an amazing school. We put them in. And we also wanted to meet and connect with the community. What Brian said around the global community. We lived in Runda, which is the UN area in Nairobi, to really connect with different populations to understand, is this the right place or is it somewhere else? And not feel rushed to make a decision of like where we're planting our lives and planting our children.
I'd say one of the ways we were able to do that is that we've also been consultants for the last decade. And so maybe we'll jump into all the chapters of our career, but most recently we've been co-leading a consultancy called Groundswell Change, which is based out of the US. It's a industry agnostic organizational development consultancy, which is a fancy way of saying we help you grow, whether you're a nonprofit, you're a for-profit, you're a governmental agency, or entity, anything like that. And so we were literally kind of living in the East Africa time zone during the day and having this very healing experience, connecting with community, building relationships, also understanding the market, like doing our own kind of due diligence about what kinds of opportunities there are, while kind of working on the East Coast through Pacific time zone in the US. Little exhausting because we were working in the middle of the night and trying to kind of live during the day. But that provided us the space to kind of ensure we had, some basic income and didn't need to show up right away trying to deploy a bunch of capital. And I think it also goes back to that piece about awe and humility. We're people who just like to do our due diligence. We're community oriented first, as opposed to just being the people who are like, let's show up and like write big checks and, just get our way with X, Y, and Z. It's like, again, that's that piece. It's not just opportunity, but it's potential for impact. And so, after 2 years, we kind of looked around and we were like, okay, well, here are some of the opportunities. Here's the kind of capital it would take to kind of pursue some of those opportunities. And of course, we're thinking about our children. And so that kind of intros like that love of smaller markets, if you will, because this has been a wonderful place for our two children, to grow up. That's one of the major reasons we made the transition.
Yeah.
And
all right.
I would also say, we've lived in rural environments as adults with our children, and we like the kind of small town feel.
All right.
And most importantly, I missed family.
Okay.
Like, I have family here. My aunt, my cousins, they're
They're
kids.
here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been here
nice.
for 30 years.
Whoa, okay.
And they've married into the culture, and their children are from here, and they have roots here. And so for me, like, knowing my kids can be around cousins, knowing I can have my cousins that if I'm like, girl, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, I'm going to put my cousin's names out there. I'm like, yo, my God, come over with your wife. Let's chill. Like we can have that moment and not feel like we're completely alone. And we met some great people from the High Commission office in Nairobi who told us, like, go please, before you invest in Kenya, come see Botswana. And I said, not a problem, because my auntie wants to whoop my behind because I ain't come to Botswana yet. She's like, what you doing in Kenya and you ain't come see me? I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, auntie. We came down last March, and they connected us to meet with different people, and we appreciate it. As a past compliance officer myself, I appreciate the law. I like knowing what to do and what not to do. And so if you let me know you got policies, I will follow it. But when I don't know policies, I'm like, this is too ambiguous for me. And so I like that there's policies. Yes, it can feel burdensome sometimes, but I love and appreciate that you're going to say no because you just want me to follow a policy, not because you want to bribe. Yeah. And so I respect that and appreciate that. And we love to know that, like, our children aren't living life completely alone, because I know how that felt at times being in America until my family came up, or until we got into our immigrant communities to, like, be an African diaspora together, to have that reality, to know, like, family's here.
All right. So Botswana is different from most of Africa. I mean, let's compare to Kenya in this case. Botswana is a bit different. I mean, it's not just the numbers. The way we do things at times, we are slow. That one is there. And especially when it comes to executing people's papers or executing, we that we know. You know what I mean? You don't have to say it. And you're not allowed to say it, all right? But you managed to come in last March. We're talking a year and a month now that you've been here. What have you learned about Botswana that you actually find is an accommodating space for everyone?
So we came for vacation, just to be clear, in April, and then showed up in July.
Okay, all
You
right.
know, so
March, April, yeah.
Yeah.
exactly. And so
So you came here for vacation.
yeah, that's right, because we want to.
Vacation slash business.
That's
But
right.
what are you coming to see in Botswana? I mean, you've seen most of it in Kenya.
No. Exactly to your point. What
Yeah.
makes it unique, right? So you hear some things from the outside, right? You hear about the political stability,
Okay.
right? Which, you know, you see in the news and BBC Global reports and XYZ. That is not the case all over the continent. There can be all kinds of conflict. So you hear about that political stability. You hear about kind of the rule of law and transparency. You hear some of the jokes. You know, it's like I've heard somebody say they'll roll out the red tape before they roll out the red carpet. I've heard these things.
Yeah.
and you'll also kind of hear on the global stage, right? The president of the nation kind of describing and speaking powerfully about the possibility for the future, and you hear very inspiring messages about the idea of diversification. And recognizing that there's a saying, what got you here won't get you there, right?
Yeah.
And so you'll hear this beautiful kind of discourse about the idea that yes, it was this mineral and we got to diversify even within that sector. All those things are smart, but also we've got to find some engines in the rest of the economy, which suggests there's opportunity. Yeah. So you hear all of this calling you, and of course that's why it's like, I got to go visit. I got to go see this for myself. I think when you show up and you get a chance to kind of interact with people, of course, when you're coming from the West, like the things like the speed will kind of get to you initially, and you got to be careful because it's like, I'm not trying to come off like the impatient, or arrogant kind of outsider. But when you pay attention, I think a little bit more, and you appreciate this idea of like what patience means, there's like a depth to building relationships that really, really matters, right? And that's why I think like there are some extractive ways that you can, like I'm saying, show up with big checks and be like, I want to control this industry, and all the way down to the way that employees are treated. And then there's an approach that I believe we're really trying to bring, which is community-oriented, people-centered, that the moving from inspiration, right, that someone might just be feeling like, oh, I've got this idea, right, to an actual business model and plan is going to require that the skill transfer piece is not just here's a worksheet on financial literacy. Here's another. It's the co-creating piece. I'm so glad that you kind of opened up with that. It's the building of a relationship, and it's the co-creation and the partnership of things that I think takes skill sets to the next level, but also can take industries outside of the well-established ones to the next level. So, to answer your question, it's like getting here and actually being on the ground, you see deeper than the stereotype. You understand that, from the outside, it may look like it's slow, but this speaks to the depth of the relationships necessary, the trust necessary, and the community first kind of orientation that we're finding already people are taking to. Because when we're getting a chance to interact with people, there's like this light sometimes behind people's eyes that you won't always see because you're a foreigner, and in Kenya, you go say what's up to people, karibu sana, you feel this like energy. And sometimes, we'll just be real, coming from the outside, it's like you speak to a Botswana and you'll kind of be like, hello, we'll be at a tail or something like that. But when we get a chance to interact with not just like, where's the passion, but what do you want to build, and can we build something together?
And activate.
There's that activation. There's that fire, that excitement. And I think
yeah.
that's what ties together all that national rhetoric and international rhetoric about diversification. What does it actually look like? It's like activation, like through values and these kind of relationships, right?
Yeah, I think we are built slow and steady, right? Because there used to be actually a rhetoric that there's no rush in Botswana, but it's there. It's just that we need to know what we're getting ourselves into. We like being careful with what we're doing. So sometimes we'll take such a long time to get things going, and other countries go ahead of us. Then later we realize, they messed up. We took our time and we got this right. So when it comes to doing business in Botswana, what are you finding more exciting? Especially you work mostly with trainings as well. The last time I passed by the office, you were busy in that. What are you finding in terms of the human capital in Botswana and what you are trying to achieve as you come in?
I love the young people. I think that's like at the core. Brian and I met started out our careers before we went into grad school as educators. And then I went on and got my master's in ed leadership at Columbia. And I moved into the higher education space, and I was an executive in the higher education space. So one of the things that we're finding in terms of human capital and the love and the warmth is the young people are excited.
Yeah.
They're so excited for what's to come, and they're still hopeful. Right. I know we talk a lot about that apathy. I know we've heard from it when we've met with different leaders. And we see it, and we also see the hope. And so when we're meeting with our team, which I'm really happy that they are young people that have so many skills and are looking for more than just a 2-year internship, but an actual job that grows them. We're seeing an appetite to learn and develop. Tuesdays, we shut down at our office intentionally to develop our team. We meet as a team in the morning. We talk about business terms in the application. We reveal what is the revenue, how are we moving forward. We show them what it means to cross-pollinate across departments, from marketing to growth and partnership, to our kids Foundry, to our connection canteen team. And we came here because we knew how educated the young people are. And we know that when you have a highly educated population, all they need is activation and a responsible business class that's going to say, you're highly educated, and we want to take that education and build with these life skills, these executive skills, for you to go out and go beyond. For us, the testament will be, how do our people grow? Are they growing not just financially, but are they growing also professionally and personally, right? Because if we're as a company taking 10 hours, 9 hours of your life away from your family, how are you walking out of this place better than when you came in? And so it's really important that we pour into them and we see them wanting it. They're even if they're tired on Tuesday morning, they're like, let's get it, let's do it. What are we gonna learn today? How are we gonna apply it? By the end of the week, we're all it's 8:30. Everyone's left. People keep going. Can we go till 10? We're like, nah, y'all gotta go. But our team will sit back and we'll be like, y'all, we did it. And they'll be like, we did it. And sometimes they'll even have a reflection of I know I dropped the ball on this, and this, but it's growing busy and I'm learning this, and we're just proud of them. We're sitting there because we want to be mentors. We don't want to be the ones leading. This is not for us to lead. And like Brian said, it's that collaboration. The way that your government is requiring that. We don't see it with all investors. But we are very intentional about it, because that's why we chose this place, because we want that collaborative spirit, and we do want to transfer skills. I need y'all to win. I need Africa to win. For all of us in the diaspora community outside of Africa, we need y'all to win in this generation. And the way we do that is by sharing resources, sharing skills, and seeing each other as, this is why we call ourselves Black in the West. It's we are descendants of the African enslaved people. We are Black people. There is power in Blackness. There is beauty. There is brilliance. And so to see the young people attaching to that and saying, and we are creators. We've been creating. The traffic light wouldn't exist without us. The air conditioning in your car wouldn't exist without us, right? What we are doing is special, and what we will continue to do through them is deserving of time and grace and patience. So,
Yeah, she pointed out something there that actually hit my brain. We are taking 9 hours of your time from your family.
Yeah.
You need to come out with something. For me, employment, and this is a general look at employment in the African context, right? I started a business. I'm doing you a favor by hiring you. That is what we are finding. I'm moving from Asia and I'm coming to your country to create a shop or a business to do you a favor and employ you. Your approach to this flips the whole coin. We are taking 9 hours of your time from your family. You need to go back with something. How do you look at it that way, though?
And listen, let's be real about business, right? It should be a fair exchange, right? So
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and suggest, come do whatever you want, and as long as it's inspiring for you, you know, X, Y, and Z. So, you know, I think through our experience, I've been a national recruiter with Teach for America for a number of years. She's worked in Ivy League admissions. And so the process even that we used for interviewing requires that, you know, we're not just looking for, oh, well, tell me what you've done last time.
Yeah.
We do some experiential kind of like interviewing because I want to get a sense for like, what are you going to do under pressure? You know, are you coachable? Are you excited about the challenge of getting something new every day? Or are you looking to kind of be like, your job is to move X to Z and then move another X to Z and just move this box all day, and I did my job, give me my money and go, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to be clear that, you know, we are like, you know, screening and looking for people who, we've been talking about this term like activation, who like are looking for something more. They're looking to make a contribution. And I think when, you know, employees are bringing that desire to learn, but also follow kind of like, you know, we talk about SOPs all of the time, right?
Yeah.
We've done operational consulting, these standard operating procedures, maybe the most boring thing you can think of. But when you do that, you establish like a baseline of what you expect. Now you're not firing people because of, you know, your attitude or I don't like what you did about this or that or office politics. You have a baseline and you know like exactly what we need to do. And therefore, if we can repeat that, we're teaching our people that's how you measure efficiency. Okay. That's how you measure how effective you are. That's what opens the door to being able to innovate in a given process and say, hey, let's go try this because we know what the baseline is. So I say all that to say it's like we've been consultants, right? Like tinkering and helping companies and organizations both find talent, engage and manage talent, reward and celebrate talent. And now we get an opportunity to practice some of that where it's really just a fair two-way street. If you want to bring your contribution and you want to execute and you want to take, like I was saying, those ideas about what could be, because we, you know, people walk up to you all the time and be like, oh, you got a podcast? Oh, you know what you should be doing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 34. Right?
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, well, day one on the job, let's see what you do. And then, you know, what happens, right?
Yeah.
So if you bring that contribution, it is only right that we bring our level of excellence and fairness around expectations and transparency about how you can grow, because we intend to, you know, whoever we start with, to promote internally instead of just looking for the next hot shot to plug in because they've got these relationships. You know, there's some commitment that I think our team can see to that development.
That speaks to investing on a person, though, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the employers don't see the value of investing on someone who's coming into their business.
Yeah.
They expect you to be a fine-tuned machine when you walk in, so that you just come in and bring in the money. We don't see a two-way street. We see, I'm picking you, you are coming here, you are helping with this. If I see you're getting tired, you're out, I'm bringing another person.
We call that colonization or exploitation.
Okay?
So I think for us, there's two reasons. One, we are the descendants of enslaved people.
Yeah.
And what that means is we've been enslaved. And what that means is, like, this is our grandmothers and grandfathers whose parents, whose grandparents, they live with that. They know what plantation. They still know the names of the people that owned their family and gave them nothing for 400 years.
So you know the thin line.
Oh, it's a thick line.
Oh, it's a thick line. Okay, you know the thick line.
It's called human rights. You know, it's what thank God, bless our Ghanaian people for advocating and going to the UN and making the world say this is the gravest crime against mankind that has ever existed.
Yeah.
Our enslavement, our being stolen, being raped, being pillaged, and it is connected to what we see in the stifling and the taking away of the resources here in Africa, starting with the people and then with the minerals, and the list goes on, right? And so for us, there is this reality of like how our culture has raised us, how our parents have raised us. You know, our parents have been in abusive work relationships. We've seen them. We grew up. We know what that means and what that does to a marriage. Like what it means to take away the dignity of a man because his boss says like, well, you need to come now, regardless of if your wife is in labor, right? Like, you need to be here, or I'm done with you, I throw you out. And now my father's walking down the streets of New York and it's cold and he's crying because he's like, how am I gonna pay rent? Right? I can't go home. Like, how do I get some pens and just sell it on the street? How do I figure out how to make my family be okay because I brought them here? Right? Like, that lives within me. When I see our people walk through the doors, I think about like, I have a real responsibility here because I was that child at home, like waiting for my parents to know like things are going to be okay. We're going to be able to eat tonight, or the electricity won't go off, or, because someone decided not to give grace to my parents, right? Like, that's cruel.
Yeah.
That's a cruelty, and we have to own that. And when you are so blessed to become a business owner and you call yourself a Christian, but you're not thinking about the Gentiles, not just the Jews, but the Gentiles, right? Those who you may not see yourself aligned with, or you think you're better than them. You ain't better than nobody. Like, the way we were raised is like, we ain't better than nobody. That's what it means to be black. That's what it means to love your people. And when you hire people, you have a responsibility. When we let go of people, which we have, because they've even disrespected people on the team, because we don't allow that. Like, you can't come in here and just think you're better than another teammate just because this person is cleaner. My father was a cleaner. You ain't about to disrespect this person because they cleaning. I've been a cleaner. My first job was being a cleaner. No, we're not doing that. And so for us, there's that reality of like, every human being is deserving of respect, of love. We tell our team, like, when you see people walk through the door, give them a smile. You don't know if you're the first person in this whole day that smiled at them. You don't know what they're going through at home. We take a moment to really check in, to be like, someone was going through something on our team, and it's like, we sat down, we told their manager, go connect with them. And then we also sat down and was like, what Bible verses can we give them to encourage them? What mindfulness things can we do to let them know, like, life is hard, but let's help you with your mind. What are you telling yourself? Because what somebody want to call you and threaten you? All right, whatever. I'll see you when I see you, man. Because you calling me. You ain't find me yet. Like, keep going and know that you got a team behind you that got you. And that's important. That's how you know, like, you're really choosing to be God's people. You're really choosing to be Christ-like. You're really choosing to be black, because blackness is about solidarity. It's about love. It's about going beyond. They intentionally took us as enslaved people and said, oh, you tribes, you're speaking alike, switch them up. Don't put those tribes on the same plantation. And so we had to learn how to communicate past tribal nuances and say, like, we're the same.
All right. Okay. So now you came in, and that's touching, right? Because we don't know that. We, especially in the southern part of Africa, excluding South Africa, obviously, some of us in the heart of Southern Africa, we haven't seen much of that. Botswana especially, we haven't seen much of that, right? But now when we hear the story from someone else, we're like, we need to know more about this. We need to understand more about this. So our approach to people can then be modified by understanding that someone has actually struggled to get to where they are. Someone struggled to try and get an education. You know what I mean? But now let's go back to, you are in Botswana, you are doing business. Tell us, what are you doing in Botswana and how is it going for you so far?
So we're obviously working together, and we've built an organization called Magnolia Strategy. As I mentioned, we've been consultants for the last decade, and that's where we're trying to tie together, because sometimes people will hear what Theodosia just kind of walked through and our personal story and connection to treating people well, and think it's just at odds with running a good business. And in fact, the reality is that, organizations with strong cultures outperform others everywhere you look. It's not an Africa-specific challenge to find ways to operationalize strong, fair, efficient, effective, transparent cultures. So we're bringing a lot of that consulting experience, where we worked across a bunch of different industries, into Botswana with Magnolia Strategy. And the first effort, because of course, consulting engagements take time and building relationships, but the first effort has been to build a multi-story space in Block 8's industrial park, the Diamond Industrial Park. We're right near Bob's. We're right near all the big diamond companies, but in an industrial space. And we call it Magnolia Foundry. We had somebody walk in, this older gentleman, and he was like, "Are you all working with metal? And, do you have a smelter? Are you doing some aluminum? I saw foundry." And I go, "Sorry, it's just a metaphor."
Okay. Yeah.
Normally, a foundry is connected to metalwork and
Yeah.
building things, the Industrial Revolution. So it's a bit of a metaphor because we're trying to create a co-creation space, a venture studio, a space where community and innovation come together. And I know that there are similar kind of spaces and partnerships that we're building all across the innovation ecosystem, because our claim to fame is not that we're the first people bringing innovation to Botswana.
Yeah.
No.
Again, that would not, that would miss the whole point of kind of who we are. But our kind of tagline with Magnolia Foundry and this space is that we are inviting people to connect, to create, and also to play.
Yeah.
Right. And, we have a couple of different kind of spaces. There's a dedicated kids foundry space, which I'm sure, Theodosia, you can speak to a little bit more, but just by way of quick kind of overview, where we aren't just like jump on a trampoline.
Yeah.
Who are the next generation of innovators? On the one hand, this can't be let's do worksheets so that your grades in school go up. On the other hand, it can't be completely unstructured play. I mean, God knows
Yeah.
parents need some time to just be like, I'm going to Airport Junction and dropping off my babies. But we call them inventors. We call the kids creators. We're talking about issues of like supply chain with ages 5 to 12. We're talking about what happens when there's an embargo going on, and this produce like needs to come to. Should Botswana increase its supply? Should it buy from other places?
How would it increase its supply? What's happening on the farms?
Why wouldn't you ask
Yeah.
the next generation of creators and leaders of a nation, right? It's about the strength of our children. And so we're trying to create a niche there that I hope you
You
see,
did a great job.
which I hope you see is aligned to what we've got to do with the adults.
Yeah.
So while the kids are maybe doing the playing, they're actually doing a whole lot of connecting and a whole lot of creating when they come for open play or they come for camps, what have you. But then on the adult side, right, if you will, the main kind of foundry, there are 2 floors where our consultancy and our venture studio, live. There, we are trying to begin by creating meaningful opportunities for people to connect and create, but also to play and have some fun.
Yeah.
We've been doing some jazz nights to build community, and it's exploding and becoming very popular. We're having game nights. We're doing things where it's like we can bring some live, but we're also beginning to engage with professional communities. And so we recently did an NGO mixer where we heard from a number of different NGOs who came. Normally we come to an event and people are just kind of talking at us. We never have the opportunity to actually understand what the challenges you're facing. We know that money is always like a pressure, but then you go to these events and it's just about who can write me the check versus how are you building capacity in the absence of that check, right? And so we're beginning to engage with like professional communities to kind of say beyond just the who's who and the founders meetup, I just want to be seen there and take my picture. It's cool if you want to tag us on Instagram or TikTok, what have you.
Yeah.
But where does the meaningful connection happen? Where does the relationship get a little deeper? Where do you begin to break down like that belief that if I talk about what I'm building, somebody's going to steal it? Right?
Yeah. There's that fear.
Ooh,
General
it's
fear,
real.
yeah.
It's real. And so
Yeah.
there are ways that you've got to learn to talk about your opportunity that don't necessarily give away. This is exactly what I think, creates a barrier to entry for other people to take the idea. And so, we're going to begin. We are building community and doing so where people can have some fun and can connect. And of course, our goal over time with the consulting background, and maybe you're familiar with the venture studio model, is to begin to create some opportunities where it's like we're actually not just incubating, but we're actually like taking on some serious problem statements and thinking about new ways of co-creating a solution, so that we take a little pressure off of the I'm the one true founder and I'm gonna make all of the money. Taking some of that out of it. and getting to the, the point of like, what would an actual scalable, sustainable solution to this problem look like through hackathons and all kinds of ways to bring the community together to actually be proud of lifting something up, as opposed to the deeply kind of, it's all about me and it's all about my secret idea, and we're trying to build business even in different ways. And we think that adds to the ecosystem because we're not explicitly writing checks to founders. We're looking to build the partnership and be like, what's your next step? If money's involved, okay, that's a part of the design challenge. But we need to get out of some of the traditional ways of saying, we'll just be purely a funder or just purely like an accelerator kind of space. We're engaging with BQA and HRDC and want to pursue like training institute credentials and all those kinds of things. So I would say like the future is bright, but at the core of it is trying to have a slightly different model and approach to co-creating solutions that really matter for Botswana and for the region.
Right. But how do you find a footing in a space where sometimes don't you feel like you are a little bit way ahead of your time when you're dealing with some people?
What entrepreneur hasn't heard that?
Yeah, because one will listen like, yeah, that's like 50 years from now. Sure, but we hear you. Don't you meet those faces?
Of course.
Where you can, the person doesn't have to say it. You see when you're talking to them, and it's like you switched off a certain light in them.
Yeah.
Hey.
I was first going to say it depends on the generation, and then I scratched that because I think it just depends on the person. You're a creator.
Yeah.
And when we talk to you, it's like,
yeah, I understand. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And there's a lot of creators here in Botswana.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the beauty. And I think when we meet those within the creative space, even if they are creators because people get it confused. Creators are also deep business people like yourself, right? And like respect. And so we've met a lot of amazing creators, whether they're in the art space, the medical space, the finance space, and they have a belief and they're out there like trying to do it. And so when you meet someone and it clicks. And then you do meet people who are like, let's see how this works out. I don't know if you're praying for my downfall or not, or but it's like I'm just like, in Jesus' name, I am covered. We are covered. But I guess that's what it means to have faith.
Yeah, I think for me,
let me just add one other piece. And then for those out there who are like on the kind of businessy side of things, there are terms for all of this. There's an adoption curve, right? We've seen this. There are what are called early adopters, and there are people who laughed at the first iPhone, and they laugh at this, and they laugh at the founder who's like, oh, we can do this differently. We talk about this all the time, the mental toughness with our team. And this goes back to Theodosia's point that it's not just skill transfer. It's like there's orientation and mentality. Skills, life skills that are necessary that we talk about. 1 week you're like, no one's going to come to this event because Botswana only does these large, events, and you get all these partners and you get that this has been the model to do it. You can't have a jazz night every single week. And then a single influencer comes through the door. And you get 30,000 views on a single video. Yeah. And your RSVPs for a space that holds 40 to 50 people goes through the roof, and you're turning people away. And all of a sudden, the team goes, oh, well, I guess that is possible. And so you simply look at the fact that, there are going to be some early adopters who see the opportunity and are going to ask some critical questions about, well, what are the steps and how do we know that we get traction? And this goes back to, I've been a global brand manager for Colgate-Palmolive, working out of Manhattan in global markets for a number of years. And, we do consumer insights, and you'd have to figure out, right? Even in the startup world, we call it a minimally viable product, an MVP. Yeah. And you don't just do that alone on faith, right? Hope is not the strategy, right?
Faith is not just hope, it's works.
And you got to have a deeper definition of faith. But I know that some people will hear that and be like, well, just have faith. You need to figure out what your customer traction is going to look like and experiment and test it. Because if this works, and now it's like people want to come perform, do live performances, and what started as a jazz night where people were like, this model could never work, is a thriving, bustling space that,
people get to meet other people, sit
Yeah.
at tables with different people, and they're like, "Oh, okay, this wasn't bad. This was really nice."
So we just look at the adoption curve and we get serious about what experimenting for traction looks like.
All right. So now let's look at Botswana who feel, I want to leave. You know, so this is the thing, like it's home. It's home for us,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it might not be where our prophecies
Yeah.
are going to be powerful. All right?
Yeah.
And people are afraid. Like you see, what I'm doing here for Botswana, maybe I'm a little bit too early, but if I go to South Africa, I might just hit the market. And they're afraid of moving. How do you get them to just say, look, you got to get up and get it done?
Sure. I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
Not by choice. I was
Yeah.
a child.
All right?
But now here I am, an immigrant again by choice.
Yeah.
Move in your calling always. I'm never going to stop someone from going where they believe they go. But make sure you check who's prophesying over your life.
Okay.
And make sure that you also know how to give back to what is yours, what is home.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is, because it's supposed to be home.
Yeah.
You were born there for a reason.
Yeah.
Like I was born in Guyana, South America for a reason. I have plans for my home country. I have sat on boards in my home country on purpose to give back from an early age of what I have to give back to my country. I've donated and I still connect with my people, right? And so wherever you go, if you do choose to leave Botswana, don't you ever forget your country.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because then you can't be telling the story of they, because now you are they.
Yeah.
You are now the person empowered to have done something, to do something, even if you think that something is inconsequential, that something could change someone's life, someone's belief, someone's mentality, can give someone hope. And so I would say, like, if you do want to leave, don't you ever forget where you come from. Don't you despise it, look down on it. And most importantly, you better figure out a way to give back. And not give back in like, I'm the big boss, and now I'm giving you this. No, because you were there taking this. Is that how you want to be seen?
Yeah.
You know, like don't God does not despise the small beginnings. In fact, the Bible says he delights in it. So you should delight in where you're at. And if you can make it at home, if you feel like the prophecy, the calling is at home, then you give it your all and keep having faith by doing the work.
All right. So let me take your last one, obviously, on just generally how people should look at life, how they should look at progressing, because you are consulting for different big companies and you're also incubating a few young people and also training them.
Let me ask you, just to clarify a bit more. When you say like how to take life, what do you mean?
See, many people give up a lot and too early. If you look at the mental state of the country, maybe you guys haven't seen it. There's a lot of giving up in it, and it's seen in the suicides. It's seen in the gender-based violences. It's seen in the way people just decide to do things that are not supposed to be done, right? So how do you get someone to take life from a different perspective? Someone like you would have figured, I'm going to Africa now, you know what I mean? But you left with a purpose. Someone doesn't have it. Yeah, someone doesn't find, they have a purpose, but they haven't found it.
You know, we talk about hardship in the biblical sense, sometimes thinking about, Job. And we think about what it means to have patience, right? Everyone's excited for the multiplication of their territory in X, Y, and Z. And so we pray about that. The confidence and certainty that it will come should impact the posture that we hold ourselves in with patience. And so, for me, I don't believe, nor do I want to suggest that it's like, I believe that, or we believe that we're about to transform all the mindsets, right?
Yeah.
We're looking at this from a number of different angles. We're also seeing like it's tough economic times, just like we were coming from in the U.S. As combi prices and food prices and fuel prices and X, Y, and Z and wages can stay stagnant, which we're seeing all over the world, but especially in an environment that has been relatively comfortable and a very good place to live. It's a lot of pressure for the average human being to get up in the morning and believe with all of these economic things, right? All of these kind of social things in terms of where am I from in the region and what tribe and all of those social things, even spiritual things, right? Within our own families and X, Y, and Z, that I'm just going to overcome and I just have confidence it's all going to work out. You raised the question about should you go pursue opportunity in other countries? You know, we will never sit here and say, don't go see the world. Don't, give yourself exposure. Don't pursue opportunity. We're people who've done that all over the U.S. and eventually all over the world and wanting to do it with purpose. But what I will say is that, for me, it starts as like because some people need the exposure. And so our prayer and our hope is that beyond making money, which any business person who sits and tells you, I don't want to make money, right? That's not what we're trying to convey.
Yeah.
We want to make sustainable economic diversification efforts. We want to improve employment opportunities. But beyond that, everyone that we get a chance to interact with, it's our prayer that we're doing exactly what you're asking about, what you're describing.
Yeah.
That people need to see some hope. People need to see some examples of things being done differently, because that's what sparks the idea and the belief that something different can be possible for me. So it's not one of those things where I say I'm going to reach 1 million souls by this date. My prayer is just that in all of the work that we do, all the exposure that it gets, all the employees and partners that we get a chance to interact with, it touches something real for people beyond just an economic opportunity. Yeah. And it is purpose. It is to be connected to impact, to some kind of introspection about what my calling is, what I'm here to do, and then to put it with some real experimentation.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Some real testing of, if you think you have an idea, don't wait for that big check to show up. Find the small thing and figure out if somebody actually has that problem, and you can sell that to them.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Right. And then to you. So if I gauge the two of you, right?
Yeah.
You're very religious. He is too, but you are very religious. And that's just me taking. So I believe that you are the prayer warrior and you lead the prayer. So I'll take it from you.
Very perceptive.
Yeah, because I'm picking it from her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where safety is in the first place. So I need you to then talk to another young person out there. Right? They might not be getting opportunities. They are looking for university now. I think the tertiary education phase actually on as we speak.
Yeah.
They don't know what's next. They look at the costs and the entry points and like, I don't fit in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What should they be doing? How should they be thinking?
Cry first.
Yeah.
Like,
Let yourself cry.
Let yourself cry.
Ah, you know what? Some of us are African men. We're not going to do that.
Find a good woman to cry on. No.
What?
Cry. You need to let it out. You can't hold that within. God doesn't want you to keep those emotions in. One, physically, it impacts your blood pressure. It impacts your mental state.
Okay.
Like, you got to be real with yourself.
Yeah.
And like Brian said, Job, everyone has a season, and sometimes that season has nothing to do with it. You did anything wrong. Job didn't do anything wrong. And he lost his wife, his children, he lost his wealth, right? And yet, it was all for a purpose, right? And so I know when I've been through hard times. I've seen my family go through hard times. And so if you're a young person going through it right now and you're thinking about like, what is this here for me? Instead of saying, what is this, like, what is happening to me? Say, what can this small beginning become?
Yeah.
What is here that I'm missing, that other people are missing, that I can create, right? What can I use within my ecosystem? I got hands. What can I do with my hands? Don't let because you went to school mean you can't figure out what to do with your hands. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be destitute when you got 2 feet. How can you move 1 foot in front of the other? Because that's what I had to do some days. And whether I have to be a nanny for 4 years, whether I have to be a cleaner for 2 years, which I have been, whether, I got to be the one cooking we didn't call it a tuck shop, but it would be basically like a tuck shop in a place, and I gotta serve the food, and I'm like, I'm too cute for this. I'm going to do it, and I'm gonna do it with pride because I don't know who I'm serving.
Yeah.
I don't know who can come in and give me an opportunity. I'm never gonna lose hope, and because if that's all you got, then keep hoping.
Yeah.
Don't let that one thing. Don't kill that inside of you. Don't kill your hope, even if it's been 2 years, 3 years. You keep hoping, and don't hope. Take them 2 feet and go walk and knock on doors. Yeah. You got an opportunity? We have people come into our place. I have an opportunity. Give me your resume. When it's time, we take those resumes. We sit with our HR person. We're like, okay, there's some people who came walking in. I like that. I like a hustler. Hustle. You know what I'm saying?
They made the effort.
They made the effort.
Yeah.
I like that. So don't lose that hustler mentality. Because if you just sit there, then you in depressed mode. Like, ain't nothing gonna. People don't create from depression. People create from belief and hustle.
Yeah.
So hustle hard, hustle always, and stay prayed up.
All right. Guys, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for coming through. Just to understand, so Magnolia Foundry, it's in Block 8.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've been there. It's a wonderful place, fantastic place.
Thank you.
It's got an area where now, if it's a Saturday and you want to dump your kids somewhere, not to say go dump your kids with them, but I'm saying there is an opportunity for your child to go and learn how to run a supermarket while in a crash-looking place that literally is a play area. Playing with stethoscopes and trucks and all these things. Yeah. That's what we want to see our kids doing. And I think we appreciate that. And a lot of people will obviously want to come through and see how it works. But just a quick one. Magnolia. Why Magnolia? Foundry, I understand.
Yeah. Comes from a couple of different things. My parents are from Magnolia, Mississippi.
All right.
Mississippi is like Botswana. It's a small, they call it like a secret success story.
The river with 4 eyes.
You know. And so we're talking about literary giants. We're talking about Snoop Dogg is from up the street from my grandma. It was a hotbed of civil rights leaders who would emerge and be leaders both nationally and internationally, all from Magnolia, Mississippi. So it honors some of that history that we come from specifically. But number 2 is one of the oldest flowering plants on earth.
Okay.
Right? And so for us, it's a symbol of resilience. It's a symbol of kind of transformation and things blossoming. So we want to be a foundry and help people create, but we're going to do it in the context of some of what we've shared today, that we have a deep passion for the diaspora and for our people, all of our people, seeing each other, as the 5 fingers together who can do a whole lot more together than separated. And we need that resilience because, like Theodosia said, in this generation, Africa's got to win.
All right. Guys, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Right, and that's how we end today's edition of the Thinnk Set.